Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We're a full service CX and UX consulting firm. Check us out. And welcome to our rescheduled but always fun office hours Ask Me Anything with special guests Darren Hood and Dr. Nick Fine. Before we welcome them to the stage, let's just take a quick moment to thank the people who are financially supporting the channel. There's a handful of you, and I'm very grateful. And these are our mid-level and senior level low ego action heroes: Anita, Chang, thank you, Darren, Ican, Irena, Jordan, Michelle, Nikki, Ralitza, Ray, Solomon, new member Farmcat, you know who you are, and Mix Betty. So thanks to everybody supporting the channel financially at all levels. If you'd like to join in, you can press join on the YouTube channel, but it's absolutely optional because I am not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to spread the knowledge and advice. And if you want to throw some money at me, I accept. So with that being said, let me bring in our super special guests. Sadly, the last time we will see them this year until the new year. So let's have them introduce themselves. Darren, who the heck are you?
Hi, everybody. Oh goodness, my computer scared me. It came in back there.
Damn rainbow.
I'm Darren. Yeah, it's that goofy Mac thing. Anyway, yeah, Darren Hood, experienced design practitioner of 26 plus years. I'm going to throw something different in there today. I've been educating people for over 40 years, so telling my age and beyond that, and just love supporting people, love helping people grow, and that's why I'm here enjoying it with my buds today.
Cool. Welcome, welcome. And you don't look a day over 43. It's amazing what you've managed to do starting as a toddler. We're so proud of you. Niku says, love your hat, Dr. Nick. Good to see everyone. Dr. Nick, tell us who the heck you are.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nick. I feel like a Simpsons character. I know I am. Totally right. Dr. Nick Riviera, who bought his medical degree, I think, in like the University of Grenada or Mexico or something terrible. I don't know. Anyway, hello. I'm a practitioner of 10 years. I've been in digital and new media for 20 years, basically since it was born. I was a big deal in the dot-com boom, but that's been forgotten about. Today I'm working as a user researcher, and I'm actually a working, gigging user researcher. So the insight that I bring to the party is all from the shop floor, which is where I spend all my time. And I've literally just come out of a day full of user research sessions. So that's me.
Yeah, thanks. And it's great to remind everybody that the three of us still actually do the work. We are not talking heads. Yes. We are not, if you go to our LinkedIn, it doesn't look like the last time we worked in UX was 2011. We're doing the things, not to name any names. So yeah, we still do the stuff. So we're happy to talk about it. Real UX, kids. It's like, I don't even know what to say anymore. Good Lord. Well, 2021 is ending. And before we get started, anything either of you would like to say in a la recherche, looking back at 2021. Darren, some 2021 thoughts?
Oh, God. It's been a wild year. COVID aside, it's been a wild year from a UX perspective. And, just continuing to fight the good fight. That's it.
With you. Nick, anything in the rearview mirror there?
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'm glad it's in the rearview mirror. But the trajectory isn't good either, and I don't want to be all negative and horrible, and I'm meant to be all Christmassy and yay! But it's pretty poor at the moment, man. It's very poor. And things aren't getting better. We'll see what happens next year. See what the way the pandemic swings, because it's affecting everybody's workflow and everything. So we'll see. I expect more of the same, but for the moment, it's been a challenging year.
Yeah, well, hopefully something better next year, though pandemic-wise, I am not expecting it. I'm still hoping to hold a September wedding. You're all invited. Otherwise, all right, let's jump into questions. Remember, everybody, this is Office Hours Ask Us Anything. And everything y'all always ask me about the channel, it's right here, deltacx.com/links. Things like, hey, Deb, how do I sign up for your Acture class? Hey, what's the calendar of events for the show? How do I know it's coming up? Hey, all your questions right here. How do I join the Slack channel? Right, all answered here in fresh new page. Come do it, and please subscribe on YouTube and tell everybody you know about the channel, because I'm still sad that charlatans have more subscribers than I do. And Charlene says, hello, cool cap, Dr. Nick. So we only got one question ahead of time today. So let's remind everybody that if you would like to ask a question, you can ask it in the YouTube chat, the LinkedIn chat. I'm even monitoring my Twitter account. So you can ask your question in all kinds of ways. See, Niku's got a question. You will be question number 2 after the one that came in anonymously. If you would like to ask a question anonymously, which we get a lot because people want to bitch about their jobs, hello, Sirocco, you can ask at deltacx.link/ask. So you can do that if it is anonymous. So let's put up the first question that we got. And it looks like this. Is there a list? Oh, no, that's the old one. Sorry, that's last week's question. Hold on, let me copy paste this week's question. This is what happens when you crash while you're setting up the show and you didn't press save and stuff like that.
That's a great idea, though.
That was last time. Idea. That was last time's question. Where were you?
So, I was going to say,
you're in the audience.
The resource. Where's the resource?
Yeah, that was a good question. Of course, there is no, and what my answer was there is no list of companies who are great with UX. And the problem is, even if we knew sometimes one team is good and the other team is crap. So let's take a look at the question that we've got for this week. If you liked that question, that was last week's. And we do this every Tuesday. This says, okay, some context. A user has been interviewed for insights into how they perform a task. Hooray! Good start. I'm so proud of you. That is a very good start. Now, because this is a difficult recruit, it may be weeks before more participants are lined up. In the meantime, what do you think about drafting a persona and customer journey map with this data? Or should I wait until I get X number of sessions? I know what my answer is. Let's start with our panelists. Darren, you're making no face. What do you say?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you need to wait until you get X number of sessions, and hopefully X is greater than 2, or in the research in the PhD world, if it's in more than 1, in the PhD world, what you're in here. So, you need a night. You're not going to build a journey map off of one interview. No way, no how. So you're going to have to set some goals. You may have to change your strategy and come up with different ways to get short-term and long-term data. If it's that rough, then work harder to do something that will give you some more short-term solution, more long-term solution. But you're going to need more than 1. You're going to need more than 2. And you're not going to be able to build journey maps based off of scant evidence. You just can't do it.
Nick.
Interesting. There's a couple it depends. I changed my mind midway through Darren's answer, which was a good answer, but actually I'm going to go back and get splinters in my bottom, as we say in the trade. I'm going to go sit on the fence. It really depends, because a persona and a customer journey map are actually very different items, right? My initial thought was, 100% what Darren said. You can't just start doing stuff, or you're just going to keep revising it. And there's the danger that stuff gets out into the wild prematurely, that, there's all those good reasons why you probably shouldn't do that. However, in a more agile kind of a mindset, I can totally see drafting the persona, in my mind, is probably is a no-no for all the reasons I've just said, right? Way too dangerous and kind of pointless. So don't do that. But with regards to a customer journey map, and let's say you've got I'm going to use a boat owner, right? Usually a high net worth individual, difficult person to recruit, might be the same sort of a person you're dealing with here, right? And I can't just find boat captains and I can't get them into my UX lab or to talk to them because they're not going to take my incentive, right? I understand all of that. They may have what they report back to you and describe to you that you put down as a journey is a rolling hypothesis. So yes, you can put it down. You're not socializing it. It's for your own good to say, this is how I conceptualize what P1 told me, right? Then P2 comes along, tells you another story. You have to be deliberately very careful that you're not biasing to make it fit what you've already put down, right? That's number one. But if you're careful and you're good about it, you can, at the end of the session, compare the two journey maps. And they may well correlate, in which case you're starting to get some validity together. Not correlate, but you know what I mean? Look the same. And then start extending the sample. You get up 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 people. And if they're all saying the same things, then great. At least the journey map is then nailed. That's how I look at these things. That's why it's kind of, it depends. And it depends on the gig.
Yep.
If that's a senior banking executive, same kind of a deal. Probably a lot more pressure and a lot more time, and therefore you may have to hustle and do it the way that I'm talking about. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is I'm probably more on the Darren side of this, in that I would probably say don't do it yet. Even if I were going to start sketching out some of this stuff or early mapping some of this stuff, maybe I would do it after I heard 3 of my 8 people or 4 of my 8 people. Like if I start to hear similarities across a few people, I might go, okay, it seems like there's a little bit of a pattern here. And of course, I'll change this for what I hear from the rest of the people. But since I'm normally meeting 8 to 12 people per target audience or per persona or whatever it might be, I certainly agree that I wouldn't start a persona, and I probably wouldn't start either of these until I had 3, 4, whatever people done. I don't want to say under my belt. That sounds wrong. But basically, had a few people completed and started to see patterns. Because I agree with Dr. Nick in that if you do try to start this out a little bit too early, you might say, well, gee, this guy's kind of like this guy. So, we'll just, then it gets all fudgy and proto-persona-y and whatever. And then I get grumpy and light things on fire. So I would say let's wait on that. Darren, before I let you speak, let me say quickly, Destiny, we've added your question to the list. Niku, your question is on the list. And Aftab, I'm adding your question to the list. Okay, go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I saw that. Just hearing the different things were said, and I agree with everything Dr. Nick said and what Debbie added on as well. It just made me think about something else from a strategic standpoint, that when you're putting your research plan together, try to anticipate so you can plan for how difficult do we think is going to be to secure participants for this research. Because if you find out, or there's some reason to believe that you're going to have a more difficult time getting people in to participate, you've got to be, going back to part of what I mentioned, you've got to be willing to switch your strategy. Don't be so locked into a particular part of your research strategy that I'm going to do it this way no matter what. It may not pan out well to go that way. So if you come up with an idea and say, you know what, we're going to have a hard time. Is there something else we can pull out of our UX research toolbox from a methods standpoint that will help us to get data quicker? Maybe not, we may not get the depth, but can we get data, actionable data quicker? I just think we need to make that part of our strategy, that how difficult will it be before we go to picking our methods, because it could prove to not be a good match.
Okay, groovy. I'm going to probably end it there. So let me get to our next question. And I think this one we have a few questions from Niku, and this was certainly one of them. And Niku asks, what were some of the coolest projects you were involved in this year? Did either of you do anything you felt was cool, you grumpy old men?
No.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh.
No.
Oh, well, someone.
I'm going to chime
something.
in though.
Oh, go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Nick.
No. You go first because mine's nothing great.
I was just thinking I think I've reached, I guess maybe at this stage in my career, I get to the point where two things come to mind. When I see the work, I just see it as the work. And
Nicker says I take that question back.
Good for somebody to hear this perspective. I hope. When I see the work, it's the work. I tackle the work. Some work is more complicated than others. I don't see anything as a mountain that can't be climbed. I see the mountain and I say, I'm either going to drill through it, go around it, or I'm going to climb it. Or I'm just going to look at the mountain and say, no, this mountain doesn't make sense. Why are we going over this mountain? There's nothing but water on the other side. Sometimes you need to reach that conclusion, but I just look at the work as the work. And as soon as the work is, I tackle it with extreme prejudice, highest levels of passion, with a commitment to excellence. And when the work is done, I sort of forget it and move on to the next. So I become sort of project agnostic from an excitement perspective. It's just...
That is the answer you give when it was all a mountain of shit.
I mean, and are there projects I've ever been excited about? Yeah. In recent years, not so much.
Nick, something positive from you before I explode with positivity?
You know what? If this is Darren, it's almost like Darren's giving the job interview answer. Do you know what I mean? It's like I could say, oh yeah, they've all been really cool because, helping people procure stuff is really cool. And it's not. It's not. At least not with my definition of cool. I mean, right. I love making the world a better place and everyone's lives better on a daily basis. But yeah, that's my level cool would be, okay, at the end of last year, I was working on a COVID project for the NHS, and that was potentially very cool. It wasn't cool at all, but it could have been cool. I think that's kind of cool, helping out using UX skills in a crisis. And I mean that in a cool way, not just like, yeah, I did this IR AI thing that was awesome. And you know what I mean? I'm a contractor, so I'm mercenary. That's the truth of the matter. As a working user researcher.
Fine, Dr. Fine.
I love that.
I am. I mean, honestly, you pay me and I go do a job. It's like the plumber doesn't choose whether he wants to do this or that, whether you've got to unblock the toilet or the kitchen sink or whatever. You just go do the job that you're paid to do. And that's exactly what I do. And that's my mentality. I'm a tradesman, ultimately. I'm a digital tradesman. So, yeah, it's not cool.
We need
but occasionally cool
all of our hands.
Destiny says, get into Web3. Design is desperately needed. And David says... Try not to overinvest emotionally so when your heart and soul isn't ripped out when it goes sideways.
Too late. Way too late.
I had a good year. If I may contrast these two, I had a good year. I did some interesting projects. We did the great e-commerce project that I've been talking about all year. That's been very cool, not only because I worked with Larry on it, but because we got apprentices involved in it, and we had apprentices doing some beautiful jobs. Elijah, my boyfriend Pier Mario, Ralitza, did absolutely beautiful jobs on that stuff. Then we did an apprentice project for my favorite singer on the planet, other than the one who wrote the theme song here. She let us do a UX project for her. I put Kayleen and Anita on that. They did a beautiful job. I had a funky job over the summer. That was mostly good. And really, one of my favorite things of the last few months was when I caught Jared Spool stealing from me nearly word for word. And out of the 400 videos on my channel, Madalena remembered in which video I said those words. And it was a video from 3 years ago. And I got Madalena a nice Christmas present. So I had a pretty cool day a few weeks ago when I had the receipts on Spool. And I can't wait to do that more. So that was good. Let's see. Aftab, we'll add your question to the end. Niku, we got your other question. Hopefully it goes over better than this one. And let's move on. Our next question is, How should you approach front-end developers who change design without consulting the design team? Oh, we've all been there. Nick, you want to start on that one?
Yeah, and this also goes for designers, unfortunately, because anybody who's the way my old workflow used to work when we did proper UX was I'd do the research and the wireframing, then I'd hand the wireframe over to the designer, and then the designer would effectively color it in, which is rude, but that's the facts, and then they go and get built. In the design stage and the development stage, yes, people interpret and change stuff and say, well, I thought this looked better or this font was better. What they fundamentally misunderstand, which I think I know, is all of the user research that went into that particular wireframe, that particular configuration of elements, whatever you want to call that. So by changing it, you're basically undoing all that user research and all that user testing, and it's kind of pointless. How do you handle it? Politically, that's really difficult. I wouldn't go directly to the dev or the designer, because that's only going to cause shenanigans, because they're only doing what they think is best. They think they're doing their job. They're leveraging their instincts and professional skill set. And you would probably want to do the same in your area. The way to handle this, I think, is to talk to the line manager or somebody in that realm that says, look, I don't know if you know, but reasons X, Y, and Z that I've already said is why that's how we produce good stuff. Don't undo it just because somebody later on in the workflow is got another perspective, if you know what I mean. And that's how I've had to handle that in the past, and it always resolves pretty amicably. It's not usually a big problem. These days, it's much less of a problem because there's much less of a line between the wireframing and the black and white design and the color design. You see what I mean? Because that's where most of the problems historically for me have come from. But yeah, that's my answer. Maybe, what do you think, Mr. Doctor Hood?
And I'm good. Before I disagree with you and pass it over to Darren, Destiny wants us to know that she works for a DAO that has no managers.
What's a DAO?
I don't even know. I thought you guys might. Oh, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. What is that?
No.
Sounds very Web3. What does that mean? So nobody has a manager? Nobody has anybody above them? Is it just the two of you at the company? That's very small. Let's see what she says.
It sounds like one big party.
So I'll go ahead and chime in here, though,
Yeah, go
even
ahead.
before we get that answer, in hopes that, so I have a gut feeling I might be able to speak to it. I would hope that, I love what Dr. Nick said, and building on that, I would hope that there's some means of communication that takes place, some venue, some aspect of the design process where the team is whether it's agile, you get a chance to talk about things, you're documenting things in Jira, whatever it might be, some kind of way to, even if you're just sharing things in Slack or whatever. I mean, a lot of people are working a lot of different ways. If there is a line of communication that is tied to the work that's getting done, you can always post and ask diplomatically, and ask, I noticed that the original wireframe said this, and it looks like this was developed. Can we get together and talk about it? If there is no communication, schedule a meeting, get together. Hey, let's, and then just make sure, I love that part that Dr. Nick said in particular about the issue of they don't mean any harm. Because I think a lot of times what I've seen over the years is that the developers doing that is taken as an antagonistic act. And that's not necessarily the case. There are cases where some people are being straight up maverick. I think I talked about the time where a person walked into a meeting I was in, a developer walked in with his mock-ups, his wonderful mock-ups that he did in Microsoft Paint. Yes, Paint still exists. I think that was absolutely comical, and I about fell out of my chair when the person did it. But I also took that opportunity to, let's communicate about this. If you have some ideas, come to me. Let's see them. Let's look at them. Let's vet them out. Let's look at it against the data that we already have, the direction that we're going. But we have to always drive it back to a place where we can communicate, whatever that medium might be, drive it back to a means of communication and try to get your point across, and hopefully things will work out well. A lot of times they don't. Even when you try to be diplomatic, That just happens to be the world that we live in as UXers. They only listen to us 50, 60% of the time. For what I've seen over the course of my career, matter of fact, if it's 50, 60%, you could have a parade at that point or have a potluck, because they love ignoring the UXers for some reason. But do what you can to communicate and take it from there.
Yeah, and Destiny says, oh, I've got too many layers here. Thank you, Darren. It's hard not to come off antagonistic when trying to meet each other halfway. What I wanted to add to that was that I had a situation like this some years ago, and I found some way to mostly gently go to that person and say, my wireframes look like this, but then I see you did this. Can I ask you for a little bit more information about that? If I gave you something that looked like this, can you tell me how you got to that? And what I actually found from that person, this is what they said to me, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. Oh, did you design that deliberately? And so
no, I did it randomly.
So I think depending upon who it is, some people just understand UX work so little that they really think that we're just creating sketches, guidelines. This is a rough guideline, make something like this. And my answer was, completely deliberately. Every single pixel here has a purpose, completely deliberately. So I think that if there's a gentle way, especially if you have an okay relationship with that person, hey, when I gave you this design, you've done something different with it. Can I ask you a little bit more about why you changed it? And just find a really soft way to ask that. You might have to sound a little bit submissive or something, just so you don't come off of as, hey, why'd you change this? People get real defensive real fast. But again, that person didn't take it badly and was like, oh, you mean you wanted it to be exactly like ours? I thought it was just like a general guideline and I just needed to make something like it. So you never know. You never know when they're changing it because they think they have a better idea, or they're changing because they genuinely didn't understand that your designs were meant to be the Bible of what's created. And so I would say, Destiny, give something like that a try. And I can think about the times where I've had a job where someone went straight to my manager before trying to talk to me first, and I was like, I'm here, talk to me. So I usually don't go to their manager as the first thing, because I hate when it happens to me. I hate when people go to my manager first. And so I would say, if you can work it out with that person and just start with, hey, can I ask a little bit more about why my design that looked like this ended up looking like this? And they might have a good reason that you didn't know about. They might have a bad reason. And if they say, well, I like this way better, then you have to find some gentle way to say, well, this is based on, hopefully you did some usability testing. This was already tested and vetted and things like that. Destiny says, it's very annoying. We're expected to have emotional intelligence in these discussions. Yes, we have to be the big person here, and we can't be like, what did you do here, Willis? We have to kind of be a little bit, oh, please, sir, please to forgive, please. But, can I just ask a soft, cuddly question here? So we've got also questions from Octavio and Svetelin, which I will add to the list. But both of these people have something more to say. Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, that's another reason why I talk about how building relationships is a part of UX that doesn't get discussed when people are talking about UX. The more we can build sound, genuine relationships, the better it will be when weird things like that start to happen, and we'll have a much easier time navigating it. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Nick, something to add before I move to the next question?
Yeah, look, I mean, we all build relationships because all we do, we're people. We're dealing with people, whether it's in the lab or whatever. Okay. Now, my point, I wanted to jump in the queue and ask a question. Maybe we can tag it on at the end. My question to you both is, wireframes, do they exist anymore?
I love it. I'm going to put it on the question list.
You know what I mean? Because
let's answer it now. Wireframes, do they exist?
I'm talking lo-fi, right? I'm talking black and white.
Okay.
Right, like not
the
comps.
answer is, in general, yes. On average, no. There's still time. I think it depends upon where somebody's working, the type of work that's being done. what the team's expectations are. I think it varies wildly once we get out into the UX sphere, if you will. It's still something that we should have to be able to pull out of our toolbox if and when it's needed to communicate about them at the most base level about design direction. But what I've seen in the last 5 years in particular, I think I've only seen all the projects I've worked on. I may have seen only 2 or 3 wireframes. I mean, less than 5% do you see wireframes anymore. And it's people always had a hard time digesting wireframes. When people see the boxes and the arrows and the image placeholders and things like that, people would see that. I actually did a design for Caterpillar. I'll mention the company name this time around. I did a design for Caterpillar, did wireframes. They were mid-fidelity wireframes. And they thought, everybody said everything was great. And I left the room and a riot ensued because they thought that was the final design.
Oh, juice.
They told me they understood UX. So they had to be put at ease. No, these are wireframes and this is the purpose of wireframes and yada, yada, yada. After them telling us how mature they were from a UX standpoint and found out it was all fluff, that they couldn't even digest a wireframe. And they had a designer before that was trying to do something with it that looked like, a drunk person did it. It was ridiculous, but they thought that was a great design, go figure. But wireframes still exist, but I don't think they're being used very much anymore.
My answer to that would be I don't see wireframes so much anymore. I mostly see them in junior portfolios. But I want people to know that I tend to judge, we normally talk about wireframes and prototypes in terms of fidelity. If they're kind of sketchy, they're low fidelity. If they're a little bit more boxes, arrows, polished, but don't have visual design, we say they're medium or mid fidelity. And then if they have final visual design, typography and stuff on them, we say they're high or full fidelity. But I'm at the point, and I've been at this point for some years, where I kind of don't care about that. I care more about how realistic, if you're making a prototype, how realistic is this? I am beyond tired of these InVision and Figma and Sketch prototypes that are basically just wireframes. It's basically your screen is this. What button would you press? Oh, you'd press this. Now you're on this screen. Oh, what button would you press here? Now you're on this screen. Those are basically just wireframes glued together. And in fact, you can see that in the way they have you make it in the software. You are gluing this to this. And so my thought is, that's going to go out of style, that's going to be something people might use, but eventually as we shift more into customer and user centricity, we're not going to be able to test paper prototypes when the thing is digital. It's not the same. You wouldn't hand somebody a wood block for a digital thing. Why do we hand them paper? So we're going to get away from things that are unrealistic. And I believe that the Figma and Sketch and InVision and Adobe XD type of prototyping isn't going to be enough. I know Figma is already trying to move more in that Axure direction. Someone told me the other day that Figma now lets you drag and drop rows in tables. You can reorder rows in tables. So I know. Wow, hold on, see if we've got something for that. Wow. Axure was doing that in what decade? So personally, I think that while we're all hung up on wireframes or prototypes, I'd rather see everybody hung up on how realistic the interactivity is. If this is interaction design, why do we keep building unrealistic interactivity? So I think wireframes are mostly dead, but I felt they were mostly dead years ago because they were not interactive. Hard for us to see our own designs coming to life. Hard to socialize it at our job. Hard to usability test it. So to me, wireframes are okay as documentation, but for everything else, to me, they don't make sense. I don't think in wireframes. I think of an interactive task and flow that people move through. And that's what I'm doing in the new series you see on this YouTube channel, Think Out Loud, where I am designing in real time in Axure and showing everybody how I would solve problems and thinking through it and showing my design process. So yeah. Sirocco says, what's your workflow without wireframes? Prototypes. Prototypes, realistic prototypes. Okay, we've got another fun question.
So
Was there something you wanted to add there?
Yeah, what I call it is functional fidelity. So you've got visual fidelity and functional fidelity. Visual fidelity you very excellently described, but no one talks about functional fidelity. And right now, all of those high visual fidelity systems that you've mentioned are all very low functional fidelity, right? And they've all got, maybe you said aspirations to, but they fundamentally don't get it. What that means is the workflow. This is a designer workflow. It's not a UX workflow. And that's the point is Azure's strength is about interactivity and rapid prototyping and iteration. And that's the strength, is being able to, within seconds, minutes, hours, change a prototype and retest it in response to stuff that you've learned about it. You can't do that in code quickly. You cannot do that in Figma quickly or anything else. You just can't. And that's what's really wrong. And that's what's wrong in the UX world, is that cycle of test, design, test is at too much cost of time. And Azure solves that. And I'm not banging the drum for Azure. There needs to be more competition for Azure in the high fidelity, in the high functional fidelity space. That's the point. And with Adobe as an entity, Figma, Sketch as an entity, InVision as companies who fundamentally don't understand UX. And therefore, I mean, it breaks my heart that Adobe don't get it, because they are the design lead in the world, if you know what I mean, as a brand. And they should be leading the tool revolution with something that supports the workflow, that is user-centric. And at the highest levels of Adobe, they do not understand UX. Never have.
Yep.
Look at Creative Cloud. It's how not to UX.
Yeah, and I think that Adobe is probably afraid of adding those functions to XD because they saw what Photoshop became and how hard Photoshop was to learn. I mean, you ended up with 500-page books on Learn Photoshop and courses, and it wasn't the kind of thing where you could just open it up and make sense of it. And the same is true with Axure, though I can teach people pretty efficiently, plug. But I think that, and we're going to do more of that on this channel coming up, because I really want to make sure Axure gets out there. And so I'm going to be, in the future, teaching more Axure on this channel for free.
Yeah, definitely. Here's what I would say to people. If you can, sometimes you have to bring Azure into the jobs you're at. My very first job, I actually had to bring in Balsamic because like this whole wireframing thing was like new. But if you can bring in Azure and show the value, remember, you can download a 30-day trial of most software, including Azure, and do stuff with it, right? And show the value in 30 days, and then they'll go, great, here's money, get a license. Right. And then you can get on and do stuff. It's, sometimes you have to go renegade or rogue or just initiate, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've got to thank you, Siroko, for the plug. She just took my 2-day course skills with me last weekend. So there you go. Yeah. Plug.
Do that. Do Debbie's course, because anybody can get good with Azure in a few hours. You can start doing dynamic panels really quickly. It's not difficult. Azure isn't that bad. I definitely do it. It's a good thing to learn to play around with. Some people go off the deep end and become super expert at it. If that's your thing, great. If you've got development skills, again, all the script all can integrate. It can be super powerful. It's just, it needs to be bought by Adobe or somebody like that, and then...
No, I don't want them bought by the people who really don't get UX, please.
No. I'm hoping they get a new head of UX or top person. Sorry,
they put that guy in 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sorry.
I give up.
I know. I was so hoping he would really make it different, but I'm not thrilled with the direction it's going in.
I was on one of the committees that was responsible for providing feedback on XD. Never got heard one time.
Oof. Yeah, not cool. But again, my promise to everybody is I'm going to teach more Axure on this channel starting in the new year, because I'm so tired of hearing, the number one reason I hear people don't want to use it is the learning curve, because even though Axure isn't cheap anymore, it used to be cheaper, now people are like, well, my company would pay for it, but we don't have time to learn this, and it's so hard to use. And then when I've been doing these Think Out Loud shows recently, and people just see me using Axure fluidly because it's second nature to me now, people are like, wait, you can do what? And it's like, yeah, this is what using Axure looks like when you know what you're doing. Darren?
I have a theory too that I wanted to share, put it out here for everybody to hear and to evaluate it. One of the reasons I think that a lot of people never did adopt Axure. They say that it's harder to learn. I think that the battles that we're fighting now for what I'm starting to call pure UX versus the cult of UX is that the people in the cult of UX don't care anything about interaction. They really don't care about the users. They want to just put together pretty screens that you can click through. They don't really care about acing that interaction to make sure that the user experience is proper. They just want to roll things off of an assembly line that don't have any substance. I think that the battles that we're fighting to help people understand and appreciate and engage properly with UX, the more people that we can convince about pure UX, the more people that will want to, they don't care then about the cost of what effort you have to put in to learning Axure, because they know what the ROI is that's going to come out of it. But as long as you have the cult of UX, as long as it continues to reign, then InVision and Figma and these other things that are just about pretty surfacey, not getting into the interaction, into the weeds of the interactions, that's going to continue to win out. So we continue to fight, more people buy into something like Axure. And yes, we do need more than Axure. iRise did it wrong. I learned first with iRise. Doesn't even exist anymore.
God.
Yeah.
It was so
but when you got to spend
expensive,
six figures, six figures to put an iRise server in, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, they go by the wayside. As soon as they put their decal on a race car, on a NASCAR vehicle, I knew it was over. When they started sponsoring vehicles, and not too long after that, they died.
Yes, because the NASCAR audience is definitely the realistic prototyping audience. So I have closed questions for the night. We have 7 questions and about 45 minutes left, because we're going to end at the top of the hour tonight, because I have another web-based event to run to. So we're going to have to, do semi-lightning versions of these things. So our next question is also from good friend Niku, and it's a little pointed at Nick. And we've had a question like this before, but this is a different angle. Dr. Nick, how do you think having a PhD in this field affects the job finding process? I've been hearing mixed opinions about how academia may not map onto industry and may overqualify you. Some say it depends on what methods you use in your PhD. So Dr. Nick's got a PhD. Darren is in the process of getting one. What do y'all say?
So which country are you in, Niku?
I think Niku is Canada. Canada, can you, Niku,
right,
can you remind us? That's just a guess.
That sounded like a North American question. The reason why I say that was that last part about which methods is
Niku's Canada.
Feels like more of a North American kind question, because that's a good way to distinguish people, because that's ultimately about what's relevant is what's, it's not necessarily your knowledge, or that's definitely useful, but it's really your methods that you're bringing as a PhD person, especially in research fields. Is what kind of a researcher are you? As the data science world starts to refine itself and become actual data science instead of people talking about it, a lot of these skills are going to become needed, and a lot of people, psychology graduates, have those data science skills. So for quant stuff, which will jump off in, I don't know, maybe another 10 years at this rate. I mean, I'm not being cynical. It's just we can't even do basic UX, let alone advanced research methods right now. So we're miles away from that stuff. But let me get back to the central topic of your thing, just because I know I'm trying to be lightning about this. Okay, having a PhD in this field, how has it affected my job finding process? It's been, frankly, I wouldn't say a nightmare. That's the wrong word. It's a good brand to have, but in the UK, people really have got no idea what a PhD is. And they don't know what it means. They don't have any idea about research. They think it's just another kind of undergraduate qualification. So in which case, they think I'm swanning around just being a dick with a massive ego, calling myself Dr. Nick because I'm insecure or something, right? That's not the case, right? I'm a user researcher with a pro-research flag signpost. That's what that's about. But again, I'm just leading the field. This should be the way. This should be the norm. It just isn't an academics. They're still looked down on, like we're seen as kind of, I don't know, some kind of weird institutionalized freak, which is probably true. So I wouldn't say don't do it. If you want to do a PhD, that's not a reason to not do it. Just because the world doesn't get you doesn't mean to say don't go ahead and do it. Getting a specialization like mine is personalization is always going to pay you back in a HCI or UX or digital world. I've got methods that I've been dying to use for over a decade, but I can't even get past an interview with a junior at Facebook to get to the room full of PhDs to be able to carry on my work. And I've spent today being paid top dollar to do user interviews, right? If you see my PhD, it's an empirical PhD where I've done some very deep data science using Mancover and other pretty fancy statistical methods. I haven't done that in over a decade now. And I've probably forgotten how to do it, if I'm honest. There's no opportunity to leverage that when it's hot in the industry, even at Amazon and Facebook, not from my perspective. So probably, I think an undergraduate psychology degree is worth more than a PhD and a master's. I really do. In real terms, in terms of your career.
Yeah, Darren, anything to add since you're getting a PhD?
Yeah, just a little bit. I have found for some people, it scares them just seeing it. It's the same over here in the States. People don't understand what a PhD means in its base form. That no matter what somebody has their PhD in, it speaks to the level of discipline. It speaks to a person's level of commitment. It speaks to the methodologies that we have to engage in, the mindset that's part of being even at the PhD student level. We validate things no matter what your major is. We validate things before we declare, or if it's a theory, you say it's a theory. If it's a hypothesis, you say it's a hypothesis. But when you make certain statements, it means that you have done certain things to validate those things before you say something. And you're not going to say something and stomp your foot behind it if it's not proven yet. So there is just certain things about the mindset of a PhD student or a person who already has completed it, and if folks just can't relate to it at all. And they will. I got into a conversation on LinkedIn yesterday about the difference between UX and UI. I'm sure some of you probably saw it because you could see the replies and such. And somebody said that, yeah, they blew me off because of their experience. I mean, really? I said, you know what? I went up to the little button that says mute all notifications. I don't want to talk anymore because if you're willing to have an adult conversation, let's have an adult conversation. If you're the kind of person that will argue and I'm not calling the person a child, I'm using it as a metaphor. If you're using it if you're willing to have an argument with a child about budgets or diet practices, something's wrong with you, not the kid. I'm out. I'm not going to waste my time. So I get discriminated against because of my PhD. I get refuted, and they think that we're just some jerks with a bunch of letters. And I'm ready for that. Even when I get there, I know people are going to treat me like that. So it's the same, I think, for the most part. And it has not helped me.
I blocked a guy a week or two ago because he wrote some bullshit to me in response to something I had written. And actually, Dr. Giles came out to defend me, which he didn't need to do, but he's a very nice guy. And he tried to write something in my defense, which was kind but unnecessary. And the guy writes back like, "Oh, Giles, man with many letters after his name."
I remember seeing that.
And I wrote in
a trollish response.
I wrote in.
Giles
I said,
is a genuinely good human being.
I said,
yes.
The man is a fully qualified medical doctor. Respect the letters.
Yes.
Respect the letters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people just don't like if they feel in their mind, if they feel I was just talking about inferiority complexes on my podcast. When somebody feels inferior and they depending upon where they are in their own level of just maturity, they're going to respond like a little kid, or they're just going to man or woman up about it. Dr. Giles knew what he was talking about. I remember seeing that conversation, and I like took off like, nope, I don't want any part of this.
I just blocked the guy. I was like, done. I do not suffer fools at all. I'm not even going to waste my time on that guy. Pass. I mean, as for degrees, I don't think it was very difficult to get the MBA that I got. I don't think the MBA is worthy of any respect or veneration. I'm happy I learned the things I learned, and I'll utilize what I can in my jobs going forward. But I don't think it's going to command any particular respect unless I bump into someone who highly respects MBAs. To me, the PhD is really hard to get. It's much harder to get, and to me, it commands endless respect, in my opinion. No matter what your PhD is in, it can be in aluminum. It doesn't matter. The PhD is hard and long and difficult to get, and my MBA was not difficult to get. Darren?
Quick comment. Here's one. I'm gonna flip this just a tad. I have 2 certifications from Nielsen Norman Group, and they've done nothing for me in my job search. Nobody has ever expressed value for or anything. Just to sort of flip it and look, all these different things that are going on.
Well, I'm a certified audio engineer, and nobody cares. I have a certificate and everything.
I'm a Microsoft certified systems engineer. I got in 1997.
Well, now you're just flirting. Well, now you're just flirting.
I remember my early days. I was out of university, and I think it's the same behavior. I had my bachelor in psychology. I went and did the MCSE, the Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and a couple of Cisco certifications, CCNA, Network Architect, and Design Professional. But the point is I felt I need to get these brownie badges. Do you know what I mean? These stamps on my bum that were authorization stamps. But you can see the same behavior today, and 20 years later in the modern world, you can. People want to be validated, even by Coursera, NNG. Even the boot camps, that people are saying things and they think it's good. It's like, look at me, I've done a boot camp, I'm great. Or at least I've done GA. But as we all know that GA probably looks worse on your CV now than many other things, right?
That started being true. That started being true in 2017. We've got a half hour left and 6 questions. Sorry. I've closed questions, so we're going to turn into lightning mode. And our next question is, hi, Dr. Nick. In regards to your weighted heuristic think tank video, I kind of understand what you mean by weighted heuristics, and I definitely understand how to implement the UX values, but the process of combining the two is a bit confusing.
Okay, I can be quick and simple, because this is really all you have to do is find a weighting. It doesn't have to be any fancy quotient or anything like major calculation. With heuristics, it's meant to be a panel driven or a committee or a group of people driven, and it's a very subjective scoring. Usually it's a tick box. Did I meet the heuristic or not? Actually, with regards to weighting, is what happens when you start applying a number to that? What happens when you start collating numbers from the panel and starting to try to understand people's different interpretation of each of those heuristics? Okay, that's all that's about, is saying there is no more difficult method than that. It's just saying have full permission to explore and push heuristics forward to make them a little bit more quantified, right? And try to do it in as safe and responsible or valid way as possible, but just going, yes, there's an undo function, yes, there's help text nearby, or you're meeting whatever heuristic list is. That's usually not enough, and it's usually not just one person doing it. The reason why I say this is heuristics give people who don't have UX skills the ability to do some top-level evaluation, and that's really useful for people who are, let's say, buying healthcare equipment. That's my experience, because they're not UX or HCI professionals, but they've got to buy something for which the UX is critically important, so they can do a quick evaluation. And if you're doing that with a team of people, buyers or other people, and you're comparing notes in a more standardized fashion beyond just opinion, that's a really good thing to do. So explore that. And message me on LinkedIn if I can help you any more directly with that.
All right. Thank you. That is not the next question. The next question was Niku.
Yes, I get
And
contractor anxiety every time.
that question will be next. Niku says, any tips on writing cover letters for UX job applications?
Big D.
I'll jump in this one. The book that I used to do for people going back to like 98. I'm sorry, 1988. There's a series that I've been recommending for
1898.
years.
No, sorry.
Yeah, not 1988. All right, got it right. All right. There's a series called Knock 'em Dead, and you'll see a total. They've got a bunch of different books that are associated with resumes, cover letters, the whole nine. I highly recommend going out to Amazon and picking up any of their books, and then of course when you follow their format, you just talk about when you're writing your cover letter, you make sure you address what's in the job description so that it's going to come out as relevant for those people. But I think the combination of the two should prove very helpful.
Yeah, I can't do better than Darren's answer, especially since he's a former HR person. For me, it's stop copy pasting so much because I'm not impressed when I get Dear James.
I can't answer this because I'm no good at. I very rarely write cover letters, and I very rarely get invited to interviews. So maybe that's what I'm doing wrong.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we'll all take Darren's advice.
One other thing I will mention: take advantage of cover letter to let your personality come through. Yeah, don't be a goofball about it. But is my video okay? It looks funny on my end. But
you're blipping a little, but you're okay.
But make sure that you're being you. Let them see you, and that actually is a way to make yourself stand out. That you're gonna, hey, I'm excited or whatever it might be, and I have this experience, but don't be a robot. But you come through, but just make sure that it's parallel with what they say they're looking for, even though a lot of job descriptions are very poorly written. Nothing else to go by. So make sure it's addressing UX. Make sure it's expressing your passion for UX. Make sure that your interest is genuine. And that's what you can't do. Your resume gets you the job, but you can't help you stand out. So use it to that extent.
All right, moving on. Thank you, Niku. Now back to the one I accidentally flashed. Do y'all ever feel contractor anxiety, meaning whether the perceived less job security affects your peace of mind? I think we all have answers for this one. Nick, you're chomping. Go for it.
Do you know, I was only talking about this with my wife the other day because I got offered another contract on a negligible day rate increase. And I said to her, look, the whole point is that when you change gig, there's that, we'll call it contractor anxiety. There is that risk that comes in. There's a whole chemistry change, a cultural change. Yeah. I mean, usually it goes well, but sometimes, 1 in 10 or whatever it is, 1 in 3, it's not so good. So yes, I get a form of contractor anxiety, but it's not a toxic or a super negative thing. It's like just before you go on stage, it's a new thing, so you're more highly alert and kind of adrenalized, if you know what I mean. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't paralyze me. It doesn't affect my performance. If nothing else, it's that whole Yerkes Dodson thing of optimal performance. So yes, I think it's part of performance, and you'd only be being anxious about a new situation and new people and new dynamics. I think to a certain level is perfectly normal and expected. It's only when, like most other anxiety reactions, it's only when it's maladapted or it's not right or it's too strong a reaction that it affects your performance negatively, and then it's not a good thing. But yeah, I think I'm usually like very calm or not calm. That's the wrong word. I'm never calm, but it doesn't freak me out. A new contract always does. You're like the new kid at school.
Darren, Greg, I'm going to lightning you guys a little. Darren.
Okay. Thinking about that, I haven't been a contractor in a while. And as a rule, actually, I stopped contracting. I wouldn't do it anymore. But one of the things I did because I can relate to contractor anxiety. one of the things I always did whenever I had a contract job was I didn't treat it like it was a contract job. I had the same degree of ownership to everything that I did, the same commitment to excellence that I did, and I just continued to just focus on what it was, what my responsibilities were, how I brought value, and that I think kept that anxiety at bay. I don't like the anxiety of not knowing when something might happen or how the job might get treated, things of that nature, and I won't share some of my personal thoughts on this because I think it'll get me out of the lightning round, but that's just what I did to help me out.
Yeah, and as for me, what I would say is I still do a lot of contracting, consulting, and freelancing. And it used to be really scary for me. But starting some years ago, I realized that I had a pretty good batting average of finding something in a reasonable amount of time. And I think the batting average that I have of finding a job within X months or X weeks makes me feel like, okay, it's a little scary right now because I haven't signed onto anything, but I know something will come. And so usually when I'm between jobs, I just get a lot cheaper. I don't plan vacations. I don't buy myself anything nice. I just kind of tighten up a bit. And then when I sign that thing and I know money's going to come in, then I can say, okay, either I've got breathing room or, I've got to pay that. And then I've got breathing room or whatever it is. So I try to plan for the lean times with a little bit of money in the bank. And then, but it doesn't really mess with my peace of mind anymore and hasn't in a long time. It's more like, hey, I'm between jobs right now, so let's postpone that purchase. Let's postpone that trip. I want to make sure I've got an income before we do anything too creative. That's the way that I see it. But again, I'm at the point where usually something pops. Nick, something to add before we move to a follow-up question we got from Byron in LinkedIn?
I think it's worth just very rapidly unpacking the anxiety bit, just because what I want to reference is, I guess at my point in my journey, I'm not scared by any work. In fact, I look for scary work because it's a good challenge. It's kind of what we were saying when we started this thing out, Debbie was saying, we really enjoy the really messy stuff because we can have the most effect. We can add
we
the
were
most
talking
value.
about that before we went on the air.
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. Sorry. But yeah, absolutely. No, that was okay. And the point being is so it's not about the quality of the work because we know we can do the job. And it's not financial security, at least not from my angle, because frankly, user researchers are in massive demand and there's always somebody. I've always got 3 or 4 calls a day. Everybody wants me to work. I'm working 3 clients at the moment just to be nice and help people. But again, it's not the financial. The anxiety comes from the dynamics change and the chemistry thing. Maybe that's a Nick thing because I'm neurodiverse and stuff. But it's that I think it's a very human thing. Are they going to like me? Are they going to think I'm super weird? Are they going to are they any good at change? Are they open-minded? Are they open to transformation? All of those things, which mean that we can do our jobs. When you're in that messy environment, it means you can't do your job, and then that's frustrating, and that is not a nice thing. Sorry, I'll shut up. Are you yawning at me?
It's getting late for me. Y'all know me. Oops, that is the wrong question. We got a follow-up question to the previous question from, no, that is not the question either. Hold on. Let me find Byron's question. Oh, that is Byron's question.
I love to use the word interfacing though. That's great.
Yeah. So Byron asked a question, which was a follow-up to the last question where Darren was talking about don't be a robot. And Byron asked, how do we avoid being a robot if we're talking to executives? Any advice on not being a robot?
I think it's a learned skill, a bit of a discipline to be genuine. I just come across too many people that are. I was in a discussion with somebody recently, and they said, "Well, we all wear masks," and I didn't want to. I have no problem ruffling feathers, but I chose at that point that I didn't think that was a battle worth fighting. I don't wear a mask. Period. This is it. This is me.
Okay, you're not
Period.
talking about a mask in COVID. You're not talking about a mask in
No,
COVID. You're talking
right.
about the
God,
psychological role-playing
I'm
mask.
I'm a
Just
mask
checking here, because
connoisseur
yeah,
when it
I
comes
know.
to COVID.
I'm like, oh
I've
God,
got
Darren's
15 different
anti-mask. Shit.
masks. I've got transparent masks. I've got them.
I'm like, oh
But
God, next
you
Darren's
know
going to tell us not to get vaccinated. I'm off the air.
no, I got my booster shot Monday too.
We
So
scheduled
yeah, I'm
ours in
all over that.
February.
But be real. And you know, when you're real, one of the reasons I think some people are not willing to be real because they know there's consequences that you may experience.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, you're willing to be vulnerable. This is how I feel about it. This is what I see. This is what I think. This is who I am. A lot of people are not willing to be, a lot of people are not willing to be themselves. And the thing is, I told somebody once, I want to be me when whether I'm talking to executives, interviewing for a job, whatever it might be, because I want them to be, I want to see their response to me. And that's going to feed into decisions I'm going to make, whether it's to accept the job, whether I'm going to stay at one for a while, whatever the case might be. Got to be genuine. So that's what I'm getting at. A lot of people, when they talk to the executive, they have an executive mask and they talk a certain way, kissing butt, whatever it might be. And those things come back to bite you later like a great white shark. And I'm not going to be part of that. So
yeah, I
gotta
mean,
be genuine.
my main recommendation here is I find that the higher up you go, the less emotional you can get away with being. If it's my manager, I can be a little vulnerable and show some emotion. But when it's the director, the VP, someone higher, I'm going to work extra hard to not show any emotion if possible. Not because I think they want a robot, but because I think they want facts and information, and they don't want,
Yes.
I'm so sad that this thing happened and I can't believe it didn't go like this. And oh my God. I think that the higher up you go, the less that plays. But that doesn't mean that I'm a robot. It just means that I want to present myself a little bit more emotionally evenly and professionally, but I don't think of myself as a robot at all. And I agree with Darren, like it's still me, it's still genuine me, but I'm making sure
Yes.
that I have the emotional intelligence to understand the emotions that I'm feeling and just put them aside in whatever I'm trying to tell this leader or executive about. Because I find that when I was much younger and I would go to someone and go, I can't believe this happened, don't you understand? I just looked like wow, 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 wow. I totally looked like, wow, 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 wow. And so I just figure, when you're dealing with stuff that, you don't have to let those emotions show. And then once you get done with that conversation, you can call up your loved one and go, wow, 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 wow. That's my thought on that. But I think I agree with Darren that it's just about being genuine. One of the weirdest compliments I've gotten in the last couple of years of the few people who've seen me since the freaking pandemic is, oh my gosh, you sound like this in real life too. Like people think that what I'm doing here is some sort of like radio personality. And, sometimes I put on silly voices and I have my voice acting voice. But other than that, like this is just me. And then I meet people and they're like, oh, that we thought that was like a show you're putting on. It's like, no, I'm like this 24/7.
But Deb, you know what? You are an experienced professional. Therefore, you are comfortable within your professional skin, should we say, right? There are lots of people who are having to mask because they aren't comfortable in their professional skin. They haven't made the mistakes that you, I, and Darren have made. And therefore, it's only because we've all fallen down so many times that we're able to walk consistently upright, if you know what I mean, or, not like walk, right? And it's the same thing. I mean, if we all gave up on the first go, we'd all be crawling still. All right. And so that's the point. Just to kind of riff on what Darren was saying, which was excellent. People without masks, like me, like Darren, like Debbie, people who are genuine tend to scare the living shit out of people who mask, right? We are threats, really, really massive threats. And if I get any resistance in my world, which I get enough, because I'm Marmite, because I'm a polarizing character, people are scared. The most offensive people towards me, the people who hate the doctor thing the most, are the people who are masking up the most, the people who are a facade, people who are low confidence, who are overplaying their hand. That, unfortunately, is the dominant paradigm in our world, in our digital world today. The final thing I just want to end on, something that I learned at this gig, is maybe it's a truism or just something naff. Truth to power. I think I might have mentioned this last time we did this. Truth to power. I love that as a saying, and I do that anyway, but that's a nice encapsulation. When you're talking to execs or anybody, just tell it straight. Be honest with them. If it's shit, you tell them. Just don't do it in a highly emotional way, like Debbie is saying.
Yeah, sorry about that. And let's echo what Larry's got, because I know I have some people who watch this without sound or actually without looking at the screen. I have more people say, oh, I go jogging. I don't even see what's on the screen. Larry, we've put up something from Larry in the chat room that says, if you're disingenuous in your interview with execs, you'll be expected to feign that disingenuity every time you meet them. So if you play some sort of character to people, that's one of the reasons, and I think these two might agree with me. This is just a guess. I grew up with a pathological liar in the family. We've talked about this before, and it made me a very honest person because I decided I never wanted to have to keep track of my lies. I never wanted to have to keep track of what role I'm playing for this person. And I used to watch people play different roles. I knew someone who was like a PhD, who was high in the company where she worked, incredibly brilliant person, just amazing on every point. And then I would see her with her boyfriend and she would play like helpless baby. And it just, I'm always like, well, I wouldn't do that. That's her choice, of course. But like, then you have to start remembering, and Larry's right, which role you're playing for who, and you can mess that up at some point. We've got 15 minutes left because I'm leaving early tonight, so let's jump into some of our last questions. In my company, the maturity of UX is very low. They don't want to invest time in research with real users. What options do I have in this situation? What do you recommend? I know we've gone through this a few times. Guys, what do you want to add here?
Do it anyway and sod them. Do it anyway. Just freaking do it. That's my, the simple answer. That's the short fire answer is lead. Thought leadership. Go ahead and do it. If it's not too expensive, put your hand in your own pocket if you need to. But otherwise, there's lots of zero cost ways of generating user-centric stuff. Just go ahead and do it and demonstrate the value. Once you can demonstrate the value, they'll love you and it'll propel your career.
Yep.
Darren,
And I'll piggyback on that. Everything Dr. Nick said, I'm going to specify, you're going to become great at doing guerrilla research because you're going to go and find some kind of way. I need some data. The other thing that I would tack on to that also is, this is where heuristics can come into play. When you real heuristics, because some people buzzword it. And they just say, I'm doing heuristic analysis. And they really didn't when you see it. No, that's not a heuristic analysis. But if you get into the proven principles, the best practices, the common conventions, and you know that these things are, because a lot of heuristics are research-based. So if you can use that to at least inform you what you're doing to a degree and use a combination of the two, and try to do something so that you can achieve some successes that you're going to go back and you're going to have to measure it later anyway, measure success. So you might as well have an under the radar way of getting those things done. So that's it.
Yep. Nothing for me to add here.
Ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. And Destiny says, I did this at my last company. Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
I've never had to ask for forgiveness.
Right,
Never.
because if you do good research, people are like, oh, holy cats, good thing we learned that. Alrighty, so make sure you're doing good research, not that crap kind. We've got 2 more questions and about 10 more minutes. I think we can do it. Do you think we, the designers, have to provide 100% of the design work, UI, UX, and documentation upfront? Or do we have to start thinking about how to hand off enough and then tweak the UI, UX while developing until meeting the business dev customer satisfaction? Okay, I obviously have a mountain of answers here since I do a lot of talking about how UX fits into real agile, real lean, fake agile, and fake lean, but I'll let the guys go first. Guys?
I will defer to the two of you on this one, and I'm just going to make one comment because on this show, I don't have to tolerate UI/UX. So
Good man.
please refrain from doing that. Please refrain. I'm getting a headache seeing that on this show. There is no UI/UX. And look at my post that I just put out on LinkedIn. If you don't learn the difference between the two, just go look my post up. I'll leave it at that I just put out there about that. I scheduled it and it went this morning. Please don't do that to me in this show. I enjoy being on this show. I enjoy going back and forth with Debbie and Dr. Nick. I enjoy the wonderful guests and the comments and the interactions we have. I don't want to be tortured. That's torture. I'm done. Mic drop.
All right. Oh wait,
Nice.
I have a prop for that. Except I forgot to have my prop handy. Damn it! Hold on. My prop is.
That's a wrap.
And scene. Okay. Nick.
I'm still trying to kind of unpack what you're asking. I think what you're saying is how much do you give to the designers? But this is what the point is this is an agile thing. Your question sounds to me very waterfall, like I'm giving you stuff and then you're going to go away and do a thing. In any kind of agile or even pseudo agile world, there should be some kind of some kind of repeat, some kind of iteration, whereby you give them something, they work on it, then they give you you give them a bit more, then they work on it. You know what I mean? Because the work that you're doing as a designer should be informed by what the user researcher was doing in front of you. I guess, can we ask questions back to this person's question? Is there a researcher you're working with, or is that part of your role? Where does research fit into that question?
Yeah, I don't know if we're even going to have time for that, or if that person's still watching. So I'm just going to throw my answer in there. And that is the stock answer that I give to both UX and engineering and product about this is that while UX does not have to design the entire product in order for engineering to start, we do tend to think in terms of a customer's task or workflow. So for example, don't ask me for just the credit card field on the checkout. We don't think in terms of these small pieces, because if we're going to design them, we think in terms of the flow and we think in terms of usability testing the flow. If I were working on a checkout and I had to usability test the checkout, I don't just test the credit card field and go, credit card field looks good. Here it is, engineering. You can work on it now. So I have to work on whatever is the customer's task. And what I teach when I speak at Agile, Lean, DevOps, and engineering conferences, I say to UX, our smallest unit is the user's task, because that is what we're going to have to design and that's what we're going to have to test. Now, if the product has multiple tasks and multiple features and multiple things, I don't have to build all of them out. I just have to build through one of them. I have to completely build and vet one user task, a workflow. That's why we always talk about make user flows, make a flow chart of what people are going to do in this part of the tool, app, system, whatever. So I would say you don't have to do 100% of the product, but you have to do enough that you could take a task and run people through an end-to-end task in usability testing. You can't just say, hey, this is the checkout, but we've only got the shipping address so far. Just test that. That we really don't do that. So that would be my suggestion. As for UI UX, you heard what Darren said, and I've decided it's not a hill that I want to die on. I think we have worse problems, but I would also say get familiar with what UI is and what UX is and what UI UX is, and and if you want to request a title change at your job because they're calling you UI UX and you're doing more UX than UI, maybe you talk to your manager about a better title, because maybe you just said UI UX because that's the title your job gave you, and there you go. And we have another question coming in, but we don't have time for it. So, Alexis, I'm sorry we had to close questions early. And Larry says, if you ever wondered why I paired with Debbie on a book about task analysis, there you have it. Thank you, Larry. We have one last question, and I don't think we're going to get to Alexis's question because I do have a hard stop coming up in a few minutes. So, Alexis, I apologize. We cannot run late today. But this question says, hello, everyone. How do you approach a 4 or 5 day design challenge provided after the tech round for a job interview? They have huge expectations to design innovative solutions, delightful experience, and more. Where's my prop?
I'll get my short. Yeah, there it is.
No,
I think
That's
we
how I
do it.
We need pitchforks and stuff, right?
Renee. Yeah.
We're all going to say the same thing. This is such a tragic thing. It is actually really awful. And Renee, I'm very, very sorry that they're doing this to you.
Oh no, this wasn't Renee. That's "Walk Away, Renee" by the Left Bank. It's an old British song. This might have been Krishna. I'm going to try to roll back and see who it was. It was Krishna. Go ahead.
Krishna, yeah. I'm sorry because we all listen. None of us like design challenges. We all think it's free work and it's not fair to do that to anybody. I think that's fair to say. But a 4 or 5 massive, an epic design challenge is really out of order.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible that they're doing that to you. I think I'd just walk away. I really would. That's what I would do. It doesn't speak well to the company. It doesn't speak well to their maturity. If they treat interviewees like that, how do they treat staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Agree.
Yes. Yep.
Agree.
So just
Darren, something to add?
Nope, that was it. How I approach a 4 or 5 day design challenge? I don't. It says a lot about the company, and I got better things to do with my time. Thank you for letting me know who you are. When you tell me who you are, I believe you. I'm out.
Yeah. Yep. I can't agree with all of this more. I think the longest design challenge I've ever done, and y'all know I say no to most of them, was they told me to spend up to 8 hours. And that was too much. That was too much, but that was a time when I was desperate and I said I might as well do this just in case. But in general, I've been saying no to these things. And yeah, I would especially say no. I've been telling people, and we've got an episode on this. Wasn't it like 49? I did an episode a really long time ago with Joel Barr as the guest talking about why you shouldn't do design challenges. It's like 49 or something. Yeah, Larry says, send them an invoice for $4,000. If they pay it, do the challenge. Oops, that was under there. So, so I advise people really consider not doing the challenge if it's actual work the company could use, like it's in their industry. Someone showed me one recently that was for Maersk Shipping Lines, and the design challenge was fucking design something that Maersk Shipping Lines could actually use. And I was like, and no. So if it's something that the company could actually use because it's in their industry or directly related to the products or services they offer, say no. If it's unpaid, remember, if these are unpaid. And also say no if it appears to be disrespectful of your time. And to me, something that's more than a few. I hate even 3-hour design challenges. So the 1 day, 2 day, the worst one I ever saw, quickly, and then we'll hand to Dr. Nick. The worst one I ever saw was like you had to design an entire online stock investment tool and prove that you had studied stock investing and that you understood different nuances of stock investing, and please spend 3 days on it. And I was like, just say no.
Love that.
Nick?
Yeah. Just to completely add to what Debbie said, some of these challenges are dressed up in these really stupid. They're so obviously dressed up as, like, for example, a shipping company saying, you've got to deliver milk one day. You know what I'm saying? And they'll it's a challenge so that it's meant to look like it doesn't apply to the company, but it's all they've done is just change the role, change the tasks. So what you are actually doing is actual unpaid work for an actual problem that they've got, where they've just dressed it up as something fictional. And that I've had that happen on multiple occasions, and they are frankly naive or stupid if they think that we don't know that. You know,
Yep.
it's like a metaphor. No, it's like a, what's the word? It's like a parable or some kind of, you know what I mean? It's not right. Anyway.
It's definitely not right. So we're running out of time because I've got something else to do at the top of the hour, which is just 5 minutes away. So let me give each of you a last chance to say something fun to the audience, and I'll let them know where they can find you, follow you, buy something from you. Start with Darren.
Okay, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I am the busiest and easiest to find. Check out my new worldous.com website. That's for my podcast. It's World O, not World of, worldous.com.
Very Irish. Okay.
Yep, that's it.
All right, find him there. Dr. Nick, how do we stalk you?
Darren, that post you referenced earlier, that reply to, I think, the UX UI or the What is UX Design one, I only got exposed to it today. The algorithm only showed it to me today, a week later or something. It's got 250 likes on it or something crazy. I mean, it's really, you've done great with that one. It's really, it's hit the nail on the head. Hi, everybody. You can't buy anything from me. I don't sell stuff. But if your company wants a progressive visionary, then come get me. But otherwise, I'm a gigger. That's it. Very happy Christmas, happy New Year, happy seasonal greetings to everybody. I don't think us three aren't back now until the new year. So have a lovely time and don't work. Take it easy. Stay safe. Omicron is weird. And let's meet up again in January and do this again.
We will. We'll be back on our usual Tuesday schedule in January. And thanks for changing to Fridays for the holiday season. We will be live on Monday. My boyfriend Pier Mario will be teaching you how to make your online portfolio in WordPress. If you are WordPress curious, if you already have something else you're using, that's fine. We're not selling you WordPress. But if you are WordPress curious or you've been trying to build your portfolio, come learn for free on Monday. Then we're going to be taking a lot of time off because you're all going to be busy with travel and Christmas and things like that. But I will be back on Tuesday the 28th doing Office Hours Ask Me Anything with special guest boyfriend who takes comedy questions. And that's to celebrate that we passed 3,000 users, 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube some weeks ago. So please, the biggest gift you can give me is not money. It is please tell more people about this channel because we really want to get the word out about good CX and good UX done well with science and technique and care and quality. So please spread the word about the channel and about what Darren and Dr. Nick are doing too. Glenn says, sing us a Christmas jingle.
You don't want that. Trust me.
I don't think you want that, but if anybody wants to see my latest YouTube karaoke song, just go to YouTube and type in Valley of the Queen's Levitt. Put my last name on it so you don't get someone else's cover version. I put that up a few days ago. That'll have to hold you. So, all right. Thanks again to everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Double mask. And I will be here on Monday. Thanks, guys. Good night. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are